I wanted to take a minute to talk about your formal reports on alum. Um, so first of all, I want to get an idea of what it is that I'm looking for here. So this is more than just typing up what you would put in your informal report. What I'm looking for is for you to move in the direction of something that you might submit to a journal. Now, obviously, we're not at the stage where we would submit something to a journal, but we want to keep that level of formality. We also want to keep in mind that for a journal, we would talk about this as an experiment and not just a lab we did in class. And we would want to have a lot of data. So we're not just going to discuss our particular data, we're going to discuss the whole class's data. And so I'll show you what I mean in the various parts of this. So far, you have turned in your introduction and you have turned in your procedure. And most of what people have been saying in the introduction looks pretty good. There's some organizational issues that would make it flow better instead of just throwing out random facts. But I think it mostly looks pretty good. I was very pleased that most people seem to have passive voice down. But if I commented that you might want to go to the writing center, that was probably because of some organizational things. And if you know, yeah, I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to that, then you can probably fix that on your own. But if you thought it was in pretty good shape and I told you go to the writing center, that might be something you need to do. So after you put the parts that you did put about aluminum and alum and the importance and the applications of those things, you should probably have something that discusses, since these things are important and useful, it would be beneficial to know what's the most effective and efficient way to produce the alum from the aluminum. And that's what's leading us into this experiment. So that could just take a sentence or two, or you could develop it a little bit more, but have that as your transition into your procedure. So then the procedures look pretty good. And again, I would tack on a couple of sentences at the end that state the variations that were done by everybody else. So your procedure, you're going to write up how you did it. And then you'll put in something along the lines of other team members used this percent excess of sulfuric acid. Now, we're also going to include data from Dr. Fraley's class. So you should also include a sentence that says a second team held the sulfuric acid at 100% excess and used a variety of excesses for the potassium hydroxide. And I believe they varied between 0 and 100% excess for theirs. And so what we can do is put together a table similar to what we had on the board that just lists what the percent excess was for the compounds and what the percent yield was for the compounds. And so that would include all of that data. And then you can use that when you are doing your analysis and discussing which one is better. I'd like you to include a graph. And so I've posted a discussion for us to talk about, okay, how can we display this data in a way that is easy for the reader to interpret? And what kind of information would be best? And so I know one person has responded already. I'd like the rest of you to respond so we can start thinking about how can we display this information in a useful way. Now, I've put together a graph of my own, but I want you guys to have some ideas first before I show you what my graph looks like. And I think there's some very interesting things that can be said, particularly about Dr. Fraley's class. Now, if you've ever had an economics class, you might have talked about the idea of value added. So when you add a little bit more of the sulfuric acid, you do get an increased yield, but is the amount of increased yield enough to offset the fact that you're using more of the sulfuric acid, and that has a cost as well. All right, so what I want to do at this point is I want to share my screen and look at what you have on Canvas. So there is a module on the home page for the formal lab report, and there's a list of the different things that you'll be turning in, and you've turned in the first two, and I've looked over those, and then this third one, analyzing alum for your formal report, that is the discussion. So I'd like you to look at that in the next couple of days, and the cost effectiveness calculations. Now I've added some things to the formal lab report page, so I'm going to go there first. So this has updated dates for March 5th and beyond. I didn't bother updating the others because you've already turned those in. So a few of you were asking me about how to do citations. So in chemistry journals, rather than putting the author's name in parentheses the way you would with APA style, we tend to do endnotes where we have a numbered superscript, and then at the end of the article list all of the references. So there is a style guide, the bottom link here that says the link to detailed style guide is the official, like this is how you do everything perfectly. Now, I'm not like your English or humanities professors that like I worry about every little comma and, you know, indentation and all of that stuff. My major thing is give credit where it's due. And that means if you make a claim and somebody comes along and says, oh yeah, how do you know? You can go and say, this is where that claim came from. This is where that information came from. And that when you are giving that information, you're giving me enough that I can go and find it. And don't make it hard for me. So don't just say, oh, it was in this journal or I found it on the web. You're going to tell me how to get to that website or how to get to that journal article. So on the bottom of this, I kind of given the general format for anything you're citing. So whatever you're citing, you're going to start by listing the author. And as you would think, you would put the last name first and then usually initials, but you could do first name if you want to. And then after that, if it's a journal article, you would put in quotes the title of the journal article. If it is a web page, you would put in quotes the title of the web page. And this would be like the general or the specific web page, the article on that web page. So maybe you're looking at the web page abcaluminum.com. Okay, but the article that you're looking at is applications of aluminum recycling. So you would put in quotes, application of aluminum recycling. And then you underline the main thing. So if it's a journal, if it's a book, or the general website, abcaluminum.com, that would be what would be underlined. Okay, you put the year in bold. And then after that, and usually things aren't really updated more than on a yearly basis, but look on the page and see if you can find either when the article was published or if it was updated recently, and you can put that date as well. So you could put last updated June 15th, 2019. And so that indicates when you saw that, so that if somebody goes back to that website later and they can see, oh, well, this is a little bit different, but it's been updated since then. So they have an idea of when you looked at it. And then if you are looking at something that is in print format, then you would give, if it's a journal or a series of books, you would give the volume and then what pages those are on. So that's kind of the general format. And if you stick with that with most things, then you're going to be okay. But if you have something that's a little bit unusual, you can go to this brief style guide. And this has some really, I think, fairly easy to read rules. So it talks about where it comes from, and then it talks about how to format in-text citations. That means while you're writing. So that means you don't wait until the end and reference everything. You tell me where in that article that particular reference comes to. So you're going to look at the first one, superscript numbers. Okay. I'm okay with italic numbers too, but I'd like the numbers in there. And it tells you how to do that. It tells you how to format the reference list at the end. And then it also gives examples for books, articles, lab manuals, theses and patents. I don't think you'll have those. Conferences, sometimes people will talk about something at a conference, but they won't publish it in a journal article yet. And then the last one is web and online type things. So they can give you examples of how to work those things out. Again, that is not the kind of thing I want you to stress over. I'm not gonna, take off points because you put a comma instead of a period or a semicolon instead of a comma or things like that. I will probably mark the things that I notice, but I don't want you to stress over all of those details. Okay, so getting back to what is online. So either from the formal lab report page or from your main Canvas page where the list of assignments are, you can see that, again, the discussion is coming up. And the next thing also is the cost effectiveness calculations. And I did these calculations probably in about 5 minutes. Real simple algebra. It's not anything really complicated. Basically, what I want you to do is kind of see, are you making a profit from producing the alum? And so you're going to take the idea that 1 gram of aluminum can be sold for 25 cents. So how much could you have sold the aluminum you weighed out for? So we're going to say, okay, I did 1.23 grams times that 25 cents. How many cents would that be? Now make sure that you keep in mind that the first 2 are listed in cents and the last 2 are listed in dollars. And the first 2 are in grams, which is what you measured. The last 2 are in liters, but you measured milliliters. Okay, so if you did 20 milliliters of sulfuric acid, that's 0.020 liters. Okay, and all I need on that is the calculations. You don't need to discuss it or anything like that. Just show me the work that you came up with. It's fine for this assignment to just upload handwritten work the way you would with your informal lab reports. But if you are, but when you put it in your final report, calculations should be typed out. I want to show you a little bit. I know Word is the most common program for people to use. It's not the exclusive one, and there's usually some format that's similar to this that you can use. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how you would do this on Word. And so I noticed several of you wrote out chemical formulas like this. We want to make sure that we have subscripted and superscripted appropriately. So if you highlight that number up at the top, you have an X with a little 2 next to it and an X with a 2 up above it. So to subscript, we're going to put that little 2 and click on it again for the 4. And then if you start typing after that, it's going to stay small. So you're going to want to undo it. There are some keys that you can use. Superscript is Control-Shift+. So those are 2 ways that you can do that as well. All right, the other thing is putting in an equation. So you can click Insert, and then there's lots of different options along here, but if you look over on the far side, you'll see equation is one of them, and it's going to put a little box, and the top of your screen has changed. And so you can use this to type things in. It takes a little bit to get the knack of how it works, but this is a really good way to put in your chemical equations. So if I want to put aluminum as a solid plus KOH as a solid plus H, and now I need a subscript, I can put one of these boxes. So I'm going to choose subscript. And this is something that I always do on here. You want to put your H inside that box. So I'm going to put the 2 here, put my H inside this box, and get rid of my other H. And then I just need to make sure I'm outside of that box when I go on with my O. Oops. Liquid. This will also allow you to put arrows in. So I'm going to look for some different things that I can put along here. And if I look in this list of symbols for operations and scroll down, I have arrows, so I can choose an arrow. And I want to do that without deleting everything that I already have. So there's my arrow. So that can be a way you can put in your chemical formulas in a way that's easy to see. And then if you ever need to put in a fraction, maybe you want to show a calculation like I had 1.25 grams of aluminum times, well, this can be something you can put in the equation editor as well. Insert equation. Oops. I'm going to put 1.25 grams of aluminum times, and now I can stick in a fraction. So I'm going to go to where it shows the fraction, and you have different styles. So if you're just writing units, you might use the second style or the third style. But if you're trying to write a fraction, you can put it this way. And so I can say, I'm going to multiply this on top by 25 cents on the top. And I'm going to put my 1 gram on the bottom. I'm going to want my operator, my times. And so I'm going to find that over here. Oops, come on. There it is. And most of your operators that you would normally see in your typing, you can also just type in. And then you will have your, and so then you can just type that in. Okay, so that's how you can use equation editor, and you can do this within your document, or generally you can just copy this whole thing and then paste it wherever you want it to go. And that can be a way you can do that.